Welcome to NEXTGames' video on how to beat this month's Volume 1 Ambuscade on any difficulty. I know that many of my subscribers enjoy my solo content, but I thought I'd throw in some other strategies this month since this one can be so challenging to solo. I will start with an overview of the fight for any difficulty while showing how to solo on very easy. I'll then show examples of an easy solo and a very difficult party setup. To get this month's key item, I recommend going to the home point in Newton Mavopolis, as there are plenty of goblins here to quickly kill. If you do not have this home point, you can also use the outpost warp to the Valbau region for access to some quick goblin kills as well. So let's start talking about the fight while we get this key item. This month's fight is against a number of goblins. The main goblin is a Bosetto Dawn, which is a red mage and needs to be killed last. He appears to have either a potent regen or a high defense until the others are killed, as he'll hover around 98 to 99% health until that point. The Dawn will frequently use Ice Spikes and other red mage spells and will eventually use Chain Spell and spam ancient T1 magic. He will also occasionally summon a furious Bosetto Bomber that will instantly do 1500 to 6000 damage to a single target with a Dirty Bomb. This damage cannot be negated in any way, including damage reduction gear and the use of Migawari. Living through these bombs is really the most challenging part of this month's battlefield. So while you are holding this Bosetto Dawn, who is summoning mobs who drop devastating bombs that can't be mitigated, you also need to kill 2 to 3 additional mobs. The first is the Bosetto Ravager, a warrior-type goblin that will use Mighty Strikes. Also, on the higher difficulties, Goblin Rush can be very nasty, so you want to make sure that you have a Shadow Tank tanking the Ravager. The next mob is called Bosetto Deathbringer. He will use Blood Weapon and Dread Spikes as it is a Dark Knight type mob, but neither of them is really that dangerous. However, he does wield something similar to a Kraken Club that will strip away your shadows very quickly, so be prepared to spend a large portion of this fight without shadows. The last mob only appears if you attempt this fight on very difficult. It is a Bosetto Incantor, which is a Black Mage type goblin, and it is the only mob in the fight that can be slept. The Incantor will also use Goblin Dice, which will have random effects occur such as AoE Plague and Benediction, among many others. The goblins also gain a bonus if they are within 20 feet of another goblin, so what you normally want to do in this fight is separate the 3 to 4 goblins and fight them separately. Therefore, if you are going to attempt this solo, you need to be ready to deal with all 3 powered up goblins in addition to the summoned bombs that will be thrown your way at the same time. On the very easy difficulty, this is pretty easily accomplished as the bombs only hit you for 1500 damage, so you just need to make sure that you have enough hit points to cover this and any meleeing damage you will be taking from the mobs while those trusts cure you. On the easy difficulty, this requires a very large hit point pool, and if you're in a party, you can use a single person to be the sacrifice by having them silence the Dawn. In addition to the bombs that will be thrown at you, all goblins have access to the following abilities. Goblin Rush is a single target, 3-hit damage and knockback attack. It is blocked by 3 shadows and can do massive damage on the higher difficulties. Fry Pan is an AoE damage and stun ability. Bomb Toss is an AoE fire damage ability. And Crispy Candle is a conal fire damage ability. Because of all that AoE and conal damage, you want to make sure that the goblins are away from your trust at all times. Paralysis Shower can cause very potent paralyze. If using trust, you are waiting for Yoran to paralyze you, or you can try and use remedies. If you're in a group, Bar Blizzard and Bar Paralyze is strongly recommended. Lastly, Smoke Bomb can inflict a very potent -100 accuracy blind. This isn't very much of an issue on the lower difficulties, but can prove to slow melees down significantly on the higher. When soloing, I am using Seth to restore HP, MP, and TP to the party, Omiya for March, Korumoru for Haste, and lastly I'm using Yoran Oran and Kupipi for quick cures and to hopefully get paralyzed off me as quickly as possible. I use Warrior as a sub-job on this first one, as my main goal is to simply get hate on all 3 mobs. It's easiest to do this on Warrior, but can also be accomplished on Dancer. You want to make sure that you start the fight with Yonin, Gekka, and Kaka up. Start with the Ravager and get to work. Remember to use Warcry and to recast your shadows to get as much hate on all 3 mobs as possible. Once you feel have a hate established on all the mobs, you want to pull them away as quickly as possible from the trust before they do one of their AoE or conal attacks. Now that we have them separated, do as much damage to the Ravager as quickly as you can. Use Knee and Sand to keep hate, but don't bother with Itchy if Knee and Sand timers aren't quite ready yet. Here you will see one of the most dangerous parts of this month's fight. Several times during the fight, the Don will have all goblins use the same TP move at the same time and then follow it up immediately with the summon of a furious Bozetto Bomber. If your healing is not quick, then you will not have enough hit points left after the first set of abilities to live through the bomb toss. On this difficulty, the Trust can normally easily keep up with this nasty combo. Starting on the easy difficulty though, it becomes increasingly more challenging to deal with, as we'll discuss later. Once the Ravager is dead, move on to the Deathbringer. Here's another use of the ability spam followed by the summon of a bomber. After the Deathbringer is dead, finish with the Bozetto Dawn. He will normally have ice spikes up, that for some reason I have yet to see Koru or Aurelia try and dispel, so you're just gonna have to deal with it. And that will be it for the very easy fight this month. All in all, pretty easy as long as your Trust keep up with the cures. In the previous months I've shown my solo video on the easy difficulty as I felt it should be doable for most people geared similarly to me. However, this month I have to recommend that you stick with the very easy difficulty if you are solo, as the easy difficulty is just too darn frustrating. However, for anyone wanting to give it a try, I will show the strategy I use for beating easy solo next. If you want to skip to the party setup on very difficult, please scroll to the timestamp of 33:45 in this video. When taking on the easy difficulty, the only real difference is that the Goblin Bombs will now do 3,000 damage instead of 1,500. This means you need to have enough hit points to cover that 3,000 damage, as well as any damage you're going to take before and after he tosses the bomb. Therefore, I recommend you go Dancer's Subjob when attempting this, so that you can keep your hit points topped off at all times. We will be using the same Trust as the very easy difficulty. For this fight, I used 2 SU5 katanas as well as the Kendut Saba +1 set to get my hit points as high as possible. Another option is to go with a Naga set from Esha Zita, but my DPS takes a huge hit when I use that over the Kendut Saba, and I feared I wouldn't be able to finish this in time. I'm also using Miso Ramen Food to give me an extra 100 hit points. Here you can see the exact gear setup I use. It's important that you do not change out of this gear set at any time during the fight. This of course means you will not have access to any extra shadows, fast cast, or weapon skill set. Make sure the macros you're using do not involve any gear changes. We now use Yonin and that Miso Ramen I spoke of to get the last 350 hit points, and off we go. Don't forget to make sure Gekka and Kaka are also up. You will kill in the same order you did on the very easy difficulty, but your main focus for the entire fight is to keep yourself capped off at maximum hit points. Your Trust normally don't want to do this, so you'll need to use Curing Watts and Drain Samba in order to accomplish it. Since you are not War, you don't have Warcry to help you get hate at the start of this fight, so make sure you use your shadows over and over again here at the beginning in order to keep hate. Once you are confident you have hate on all 3, pull them away from those Trusts before they get hit in the face with a frying pan. Okay, so this should be good enough positioning. Remember to keep your hit points topped off at all times, and if you see the goblins all readying an ability at the same time, there's a good chance you're about to get hit with a dirty bomb. This means you should immediately Curing Waltz 3, Curing Waltz 2, recast Shadows. Your Curing Waltz 3 is to top you off after the TP move they all do. The Curing Waltz 2 is to cure you after the bomb lands, and then the Shadows are to give your Trust enough time to cure you to full. After you're back at full hit points, get back to dealing damage. Do not bother with Utemi Ichi, as the Bozetto Deathbringer will normally strip your shadows in a single round of attacks anyway. This means there will be periods of time when you have shadows down during this fight. During that time, keep an eye on your hit point bar to keep it above 3000 hit points at all times. One last note is you will see here in a minute that all the goblins use a TP move at the same time, but a goblin bomber is not summoned. This occasionally happens, and it's usually when the goblins are in the higher hit point levels, so just know that it doesn't always trigger a bomb just normally, especially at lower hit points. Let's go ahead and see how the rest of this fight goes. Okay, so now that that pesky Ravager is dealt with, let's take out the Deathbringer. This fight should get a little easier now as you'll only be fighting 2 gobs instead of 3. However, make sure not to let your guard drop, as it still only takes 1 set of abilities timed with a bomb to kill you. So at this point I realize that I'm not getting haste recasted on me due to Koro being out of MP. I'm not quite sure why Seth isn't using his rejuvenation ability, but he's just refusing to. In fact, right here he uses his TP for a weapon skill. So maybe I'm just too far away from him or something, but it's obviously risky as well to bring the goblins any closer. This lack of haste makes the next few minutes very difficult, as it significantly lowers my TP gain as well as my ability to recast shadows. Now, why doesn't Koru convert, you ask? I think that's a great question. I'm not quite sure what he's waiting for, but fortunately I am on the Dancer sub job, so I can get myself through these next few minutes. At this point, I'm getting concerned that I won't be able to finish in time, so I take the risk of bringing the goblins closer to Seth to try and get him to use Rejuvenation during the next use of Bomb Toss. Nope, he still chooses just to use Luminous Lance. And sadly now by this point, all three of my Trust Who Can Cure Me are completely out of magic points. Well, Seth has TP again. Maybe he will use Rejuvenation this time and give all the mages their MP back. Sadly, it looks like he dies to the Bomb Toss this time. So much for that idea. Time to go ahead and finish this on my own. At this moment, Koru finally decided to convert. Notice that I have 3,400 hit points at this moment. Watch how quickly it drops with only 2 mobs and a single Bomb Toss, with no mages with any magic points to cure me. Koru decides to refresh himself and phalanx me with his new magic points instead of cure me, so be it. Looks like I'm gonna have to cure myself. Ah, haste, finally. You will find it much easier to keep shadows up now, and should be in very little danger with only 1 mob left. Just make sure you keep your hit points above 3,300, and the rest of this fight should be pretty straightforward. I failed to top myself off here, and it almost cost me the run. It's a good reminder to never let your guard down with this strategy, and to always keep yourself topped off. And there you have it, a solo of this month's Intense Ambuscade on easy. Now I'll go back to doing it on very easy, as this is simply frankly just way too much work. Next I'm going to show you the strategy you use if you're going to use a party setup on normal, difficult, or very difficult. For most groups, I recommend starting with the normal difficulty to get the strategy down and then moving on to the difficult difficulty. There is a very dramatic increase in the difficulty between difficult and very difficult this month, so keep this in mind if you are going to attempt it. Our party setup for this is Aether on Rune. His job will be to hold the Dawn until the end of the fight. Previously we also had him holding the Incanter, but the hate on the Incanter was very weird in previous fights, so we're going to choose to kill him straight away this time. Fruit Cups is on Core, and Chimax is on Warrior. They will be our main source of damage for this fight. They will be SCing with an Upheaval and Savage Blade light skill chain. Brabion is on Geomancer, and he is here to keep us all alive and help with overall damage. He will be busy, as even though his main goal is to help the DD on the mob they are currently killing, he may need to run to one of the tanks to cure them or get paralyzed off. Lithinde is on White Mage, and while she can help cure people at times, her main goal for the fight is to silence the Dawn and to make sure that the bombs he throws go to her in the middle of the arena. She will then get up, cast Re-Raise, silence the Dawn again so that his next bomb also goes to her. She will continually repeat this until the fight is over. I am on Nin Dancer, and my job is to grab the Bozetto Ravager and pull him to the left corner, while I will hold him and do as much damage as I can while they defeat the Incanter and the Deathbringer. Chimax will grab the Bozetto Deathbringer and the Incanter and pull it to the right corner along with Fruit Cups and Brabion to kill them as quickly as they can. Aether was the first to run onto the battlefield so that all the gobs aggroed him. Now we're all to grab our goblins and head to our respective corners. Now you're on the Dancer's sub-job so that you can cure yourself and get blind and paralyze off of you. However, this makes the initial hate grab hard. Get a quick step in as soon as you get a melee hit in, and then an animated flourish to provoke him and pull him to your corner. On the normal and difficult difficulties, accuracy wasn't an issue, but I definitely recommend an accuracy setup with more than 1600 for this on very difficult, as otherwise you may have difficulty consistently hitting the Ravager. Now while I'm holding this Ravager, Fruit Cups and Chimax are trying to quickly finish off the Incanter. What you can't see is that on the right side of the arena right now, the Incanter is being weird with hate again and running all over the place. The Incanter is actually refusing to leave the side of the rune right now, so Brabion decides to drop a bubble in the starting corner, and the DDs try to quickly finish off that Incanter. I considered here repositioning so that I could take advantage of the Geo Bubble, but then decided not to, as I didn't want to risk the chance of adding another goblin to that group of goblins over there and making them all stronger. Sorry that there's no game audio for this part. I accidentally recorded our Discord chat in the video for this fight and had to mute it to remove that. I'll figure out a way to do this in the future so that I can still do party setups and not record Discord chat. Now right here you can see just how odd the hate on the Incanter is. I think he's actually coming for me right now when I haven't done a single action to him the entire fight. Remember, you can sleep the Incanter, so if your group has that option, that should make the Incanter part of this fight easier on very difficult. There we go. They have just finished off the Incanter and are now moving on to the Deathbringer. Another reason that Incanter took so long is he actually used Benediction halfway through the fight. Since the bubble was down and they had already killed one in that spot, they went ahead and tried to finish the Deathbringer there as well. Here at this point, they go ahead and reposition the bubble and the Deathbringer so that they can actually do more damage to him away from the Dawn, and the fight goes much quicker. The Deathbringer is now dead, and here comes the DDs to do the last 80% of damage to my mob. At this point, I'll stop weapon skilling to make sure they can get in their skill chains. As you can see, my weapon skill misses here. That again goes back to my accuracy comment earlier. Make sure you have high accuracy not only in your melee setup, but your weapon skill setup for this fight. This is why you saw me manually execute the weapon skill on a few occasions earlier. They sadly pull it off me here and almost die, so note for other ninjas trying this, make sure you save up your finishing moves for this part so that you have animated flourishes ready, and therefore provokes ready, to keep hate during this last stage. Okay, just the Don left. Be sure not to get too close to Lithinde, who is taking those bombs, and let's go ahead and finish this fight. It took me longer than it should have to realize that since I wasn't weapon skilling, I should be using my TP to cure Fruit Cups and Chimax, and use that Dancer subjob. At this point, the goblin had ice spikes up, and it kept paralyzing the core and warrior, making them unable to act. This makes this part of the fight slow down a bit. The core even turned around so that he could get rolls up without being paralyzed. And that's it for this month's Intense Ambuscade on all difficulties. I'm hoping I can continue to do videos such as this to show people both solo and party options. Thanks to Aether, Lithinde, Fruitcups, Chimax, and Brabian for helping me identify the differences in the difficulties. You guys are awesome.